Good evening. My name is Melissa Ponzio, and welcome to the Press Box. I'll be your hostess for the next 30 minutes on Atlanta's newest sports talk show. Along with me is Jim Feagle and Ty. How you doing?
Hanging in there. Can't beat a 4-day work week.
That's right, you can't. Tonight's guest will be Mike Eakin, who is the Clarkston High School baseball coach. And along with him will be Jeff Keppen, who will be playing for Clemson in this upcoming school year. But first, we're just going to take a little time to review the weekend sports. Okay, guys, the basketball playoffs are still hot. Chicago is up 3-2, and last week, Ty, you predicted Chicago in 7, and Jim, you predicted it in 6. Which one will it be?
I still think it's going to go 7.
6 still. I'll stay with 6.
Although you may be right, Chicago has done some good things out there. They are just starting to play really well. And you have a real interesting matchup here. It's been a question of Cleveland's big men challenging Chicago's big men, and who's going to win that battle. Chicago has really used Grant and Cartwright to offset those guys, and they've done a good job. On the other hand, you have a real big advantage with Chicago and the guards and the small forward position. And even though Price and Elo have played well, they really, I don't think, have done as good as a job offsetting that guard play as well as Chicago has offset the advantage that Cleveland has with the big men.
I mean, I think you're just getting bogged down on it. I think the key is Michael Jordan. You know, when the guy's hot, it don't matter who they're playing. Michael Jordan is the key, and Michael Jordan is jacked, and I think Chicago in 6. I have to stick with that. You know, you can analyze it any way you want, but Michael Jordan is just a dominant factor, you know. I mean, I think what's going to be more interesting when it comes down to, you know, Chicago and maybe Portland, you know, I think that's going to be a more interesting series, really. What do you think about something like that?
Well, what about the other injuries to the Chicago players?
You know, I just think if Michael Jordan is, you know, I mean, Pippen and, you know, Grant are key players, but Jordan is just the focus of this whole thing, and, you know, he's just, you know, carrying the load. You know, I think it's going to be more interesting when it comes down to Portland when you've got a well-balanced team like Portland playing. You know, can Michael Jordan carry the load at that stage? You know, what do you think about something like that?
Jim, going back to the injuries that Melissa previously had mentioned, but Brad Daugherty and Mark Price are a couple of critical players for Cleveland. I mean, Brad Daugherty's the big man who really makes things go for them, and Mark Price, he's the floor leader. So I don't know how serious those injuries are. The paper will sometimes grab some and try and make something really big out of it when I don't think the injuries may be that serious at all. So we'll just have to wait and see this evening.
Yeah, well, time's a factor here. You know, another game and, you know, too late. But going over to Portland, Utah, what do you got going over there?
I'll tell you what, that win last night by Portland was a very impressive win. Utah, I think, only lost 4 games at home this year. And Portland went in there and played a great defensive ball game. Adelman had those guys ready. They really stuffed Utah's offense. Utah, I think, shot something like 20% in the second half of the final quarter. Portland was able to put that game away, and that's just a great win. That's an impressive win. And if they can win a game over there in Salt Lake City, I think they can win a game just about anywhere.
Yeah, you got 7 guys in double figures. You know, that's just a deep team. I mean, Utah is like a 3-person team. You know, Portland, 7 guys in double figures. It just you know, it'll be interesting, I think, to see how it turns out. I think Portland and Chicago is going to be interesting. We'll save that for next week.
I think that would be a great series. There's no doubt about that.
What do you think the outcome?
Well, it's a little early, but I can tell you that's just going to be exciting. I mean, Chicago, you got athletes that can run down the floor. You not only just have Michael Jordan, you've got guys like Grant and Pippen who just move up and down the floor well. And then on the other side, you got Porter, Drexler, you got Buck Williams, you have Kersey. Those guys, they can really go. That'll be an exciting series to watch if it is Portland and Chicago.
Your pick.
Jim, it's early. I'm going to hold off on that for about a week.
Okay, let's hold off. Let's turn our focus to the other championship series, the NHL. Now, Ty,
Oh, boy.
last week you picked the Blackhawks to take it all against everyone else's advice. Now, there is still time to change your mind.
Well, no, I'm not going to change my mind. You know, despite everyone ganging up on me like you did, I still think Chicago has time. They lost 2 tight games in the Civic Arena, and Chicago could have won either one of those games if a couple of things gone right for them. Especially in the first game, they were leading 4-1, and then they had a couple of bad things happen, and Pittsburgh got some power plays. And when you try and play 5-on-6 against guys like Lemieux and Yager, the good things are going to happen for Pittsburgh. I can tell you that. It doesn't take a genius to figure that one out. But Chicago, they're going back home to the stadium, or they're going to have that crowd early behind them, and they're going to have to win those 2 games. There's no doubt about that. They have to win those 2 games. If they lose one of those 2 games at home, I think they're finished. There's no doubt about it, and I'll be the first one to admit that I'm wrong. But I think they're going to go home, and they're going to play well.
I just don't see Chicago having an answer to, Lemieux. He just, is incredible. Yager is right there with him. I think we got a phone call.
Okay. Hello, you're on the press box. Where are you calling from?
Yes, we're calling from Stone Mountain.
Okay, what's your question?
Yes, I have a question. Where did Ty Reynolds get that outfit? It's so pretty.
Hi. One of your loving fans.
Jim, why don't you tell your friends to stop calling me?
Right. Okay, on to the Braves, shall we?
All right, let's talk Braves.
Let's talk Braves. Do you think it's too late?
Yeah.
Still?
Too late as far as the season goes?
Mm-hmm.
Not a chance. I mean, last year, the Braves were 9 games back at the All-Star break. I think if anything, you look at the team who's leading the league, the National League West, San Francisco, and I don't see that lasting too long. San Diego now, who's in second place, is I think is for real, and could possibly open a gap. But San Francisco, I just don't think they have the pitch. And you got Bill Swift, who's 6-0, and I think that's kind of not going to last. I think we got another phone call.
Okay. Hello, you're on the press box. Nope.
Well, Jim, going back to the Giants, I think that's a team that's shown a lot of character. First of all, they've had some problems. They lost Robbie Thompson, their starting second baseman.
Well, he's back now.
Well, he's back now, but they replaced him and used several different players and got key contributions. Swift, you're right. He's the one that can stop any type of a losing streak, and he's done really well. And then there's other pitchers. There's Black. There's smiling Trevor Wilson, who have to contribute for San Francisco. I think their strength, though, has been their bullpen. And being in Atlanta, I think we can understand now how important a bullpen is. But I think San Francisco's ERA for their bullpen is something like 2.2. And it's not just one person. They're getting contributions from several people.
Yeah, might be the same guy. Let's check that phone again.
Hi, you're on the press box.
Hey, this isn't the same guy, I want you to know.
Okay.
Yeah, what do you think about the Braves? I mean, because, there were a lot of people, jumping on the bandwagon last year. They're doing really good, I just want to know what you thought about that,
Well, what do you mean jumping on the bandwagon?
Just like buying Braves apparel.
Fair-weather Braves fans?
Yeah, just people saying, oh, I like the Braves, they're a World Series type,
Yeah, well, I think the Braves this year is, last year I wouldn't say it was a fluke, but I think the teams really to watch this year are probably Cincinnati and San Diego. I think realistically the Braves going into the season I see is at this point probably being maybe the 3rd best team, even though they're near the bottom of the barrel right now. But as far as you're going to get fair weather fans. The attendance is going to jump from 18,000 a game to 30,000 a game. I'm not sure if I'm really addressing your question, but
I can see where he's coming from. It's obvious that there's been a whole lot of people jump on the Braves bandwagon. I think you're going to see that, like you said, Jim, in every major city.
The Braves got a solid ball club, and it's not really I think they've really got the foundation for a winning team for the future. Last year was, I just think, the start of a good thing. I think we put the really bad years behind us, and now we've got some really good years to look forward to.
Yeah, well, what's going on now? They're losing so much lately. I agree they have a really good foundation, I think they just need to work on the bullpen, get a little pitching.
Yeah, I think this move with Riviera that they made, they traded Riviera to the Phillies just to kind of open up a dead slot and bring Wohlers up. You know, I said last week I don't think Wohlers is the permanent answer, but I think it is a step in the right direction. You know, maybe also consider possibly bringing Pete Smith up for a middle relief role or something. You know, have any comments on that, Todd?
Well, I think Pete Smith has been pitching really well down in Richmond, and Pete Smith is a player that other teams wanted to have badly before he had some of his injuries. I remember when the Braves were talking about trading for Greenwell from Boston, who's a left-handed hitter, batting over 300, hitting over 30 home runs, and one of the names they mentioned was Pete Smith, and Bobby Cox was saying, no way. Pete Smith apparently has got something. He's got a good fastball still, and so maybe we will be able to see a player like him as well as Wohlers come up, and maybe someone can go in and get the closer job done.
Yeah, well, I think we just need to clean up a little bit as far as we've got some guys in kind of the same role. Berenguer, Pena, Freeman, they're kind of all along the same mold a little bit. I think Freeman's got some mileage left in him, but, you know, I think we're going to have to look for a different source as far as, you know, I just think we need a bona fide closer, whether it's a trade, you know, and I don't want to get too much into speculation on what we need to trade for, you know, because, you know, a lot of it's just hearsay without really having any inside scoop. But I think a legit closer is really going to help us out a lot.
I agree.
Going into the late innings, knowing you got a guy, you know, a Lee Smith or somebody who can shut the door really makes a difference. You know, Eckersley or something.
Thank you for calling.
All right.
Thanks.
Jim, Lee Smith's made a big difference for St. Louis the past couple of years. It seems like whenever he comes out in the final inning and they have a lead, game's over.
Yeah, everybody's thought this guy's washed up for the, you know, last probably 5 years, but he always seems to do the job. But
so what else is going on in the National League?
Well, you know, Jim, you hit on a good point. San Diego's a good ball club. Let's take a look at those first four hitters. There's Fernandez, a shortstop. He's hitting around 330. There's Tony Gwynn. He's just great. I mean, this guy bats 360, plays a great outfield. This is a guy who can steal bases. He can score runs. He can knock in runs. This is a guy who can beat you. Sheffield, the third baseman. This guy's a real interesting story. For one thing, here's a guy who played for the Milwaukee Brewers. He's third baseman. He had all sorts of problems. I guess maybe mental. I don't know. The papers hit on a couple of things. We'll get to that in a second. But I just want to talk about these four top hitters because these are four really good players. There's Sheffield, and then there's Fred McGriff, who's a first baseman who can hit you 35 home runs, maybe 40. Okay, we can go ahead and get that phone call.
Hi, caller. You're on the press box. What's your name and where are you calling from?
My name is George Land. I'm calling from Atlanta.
Hi.
How you doing?
Okay. What's your question?
Well, it was more of a comment, actually. The guy before was trying to figure out what was going on with the Braves, and I really think the Braves do have a good foundation. I think also, though, that a lot of things happened last year that you can't count on happening every year. They got 140-something starts out of their top four pitchers, and I think they got career years out of a lot of players last year.
yeah,
I agree.
I disagree as far as pitching is concerned. I think we're going to see the best years out of a lot of those. Glavine, you know, might have been, you know, you can't go much higher than a Cy Young and win 20 games.
Right.
But as far as in Avery, I see more potential with him. Smoltz, I see more potential putting two good half seasons together. You know, Liebran is, you know, getting old, you know, up there in age.
You're right, Jim. But the foundation that he was talking about, I agree with that. And the pitchers that they had, hardly any of them got hurt, and I think that was a key for the Braves.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for calling. Okay. In our next segment, we are going to have our guests come on, who is Mike Eakin, who is the Clarkston High School baseball coach, and also with him will be Jeff Keppen, who will be playing for Clemson this coming up year. But first, we have some interviews from last week's Metro Atlanta Dugout Club's annual high school baseball all-star game that was held at Georgia Tech. Let's take a look.
Hi, this is Jeff Richardson from Georgia Tech. We're at the Metro Atlanta Dugout Classic All-Star Game here tonight, talking to Coach Dave Roman from Tucker High School. How you doing tonight, Coach?
Great, especially after a win.
Yeah, so you guys won 7-1, a pretty good ball game.
It was. It's great, you know, having these kind of athletes to coach. A lot of fun.
All right, tell me a little bit about the setup of the Dugout Classic All-Star Series here.
Well, what we've got in terms of teams, games and all, well, we're going to play another game tonight, and then we're going to go ahead and we'll play at 6 o'clock on Saturday evening over at the Cab College. And I think we're going to play the Southeast team, I think, on Saturday evening. And then Sunday we'll come back at 12 back here at Georgia Tech and play the Northeast team.
Okay. How many teams are there here total?
There'll be the East and West Metro Atlanta teams, these two teams today, and then we'll have the Southeast Georgia, Southwest Georgia, and Northeast Georgia. So that's 5 teams.
So these are players from all over the state then?
Right. Well, not the ones that are here today. These are all Metro Atlanta players,
okay.
East and West.
But this weekend there'll be players from all over the state.
Right.
Good. What about the significance of this game to these players in their careers? What step do they take next?
Well, you don't ever know. You know, like we told them the whole time, you know, you never know who's watching you. You know, and so, and there's a lot of scouts and pro and college that are out here. And we just told them, you know, hustle, and you never know what door's going to open for them.
Okay.
I don't know.
Well, thanks for your time, Coach.
Sure.
Okay, we're here with Steve Smith, president of the Metro Atlanta Dugout Club. How you doing tonight, Steve?
Fine, thank you, Jeff.
What can you tell me about the Dugout Club? How does it differ from the GACA?
Well, the Dugout Club is a non-profit organization, and we have members throughout the state, primarily high school coaches, but we entertain those members also from the youth leagues and colleges and professional scouts as well. We're very proud of our club and what it's done. We host the All-Star game that's going on this evening between the two Metro, Atlanta East and West, and then this weekend we bring in 4 regional teams throughout the state, and we have 120 high school baseball players playing this weekend at Georgia Tech, and it's now the largest high school baseball program of this nature in the country.
All right, on the average, how many pro scouts and college scouts would show up for one of these games?
Generally, every year we have a total of somewhere between 60 and 80 college and professional scouts that come in, and with this being close to the time to get your draft list in from each club, then a lot of national cross-checkers are in, so there's some big-time guys that come in to look for these guys for a last shot before the draft.
How many of these kids here today would rate going to the pros?
Well, there's a good number that probably will be on somebody's draft list. A number of them have already signed college scholarships, and to get them out of that college commitment to go to a professional team is something that every team has to contend with. But there are probably about 6 to 10 players right now that are probably being looked at closely.
Well, thanks for your time, Steve. I guess that's going to wrap it up. We're going to get a couple of players on here and see what they have to say. Okay, we're here with Ryan Ritter. He was elected Player of the Year from the Metro Atlanta Dugout Club. How you doing tonight, Ryan?
Pretty good.
Okay. What kind of year did you have stat-wise?
I batted about .589 with 9 home runs. I was a leadoff hitter, so didn't have too many RBIs, but stole a few bases and played shortstop. So.
Okay. Are you going pro or are you going to go to college?
I'm going to play here at Tech next year, so depends on what the draft looks like. We'll see what happens.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about the recruiting process for baseball. We know the football process gets sort of, a little bit hectic. How about baseball?
I signed early with Tech, so I didn't really get much college recruiting, but I'm talking to a few pro scouts right now, and it's pretty exciting. And just this new draft rule where they have your rights for 5 years takes a lot away from the high school draft choices. You know, they don't have much to bargain with, so you never know. But
obviously, you chose Georgia Tech. Which other schools are in the hunt for your services?
Well, I didn't get to talk to too many. I talked to Notre Dame and talked to Stetson. That's about it. I didn't. So.
Well, thanks, Ryan. Good luck.
Okay, that was a clip from last week's Metro Atlanta Dugout Club's annual high school basketball all-star game. And before we get on to our special guest, I'd just like to thank our sponsors so much, who are the Atlanta Voice and Palestra Sporting Goods. Now on to our special guests. We have Mike Eakin and Jeff Keppen. Thank you very much for coming, guys.
Where's a guy like this guy batting .589? They got the draft coming up next week. Where's a guy like that get drafted?
I tell you what, there's no telling, but he had a great year, played for a great team. He, the scouts, they don't always want to reveal their information, but the guy's got an excellent chance to be drafted. He's a shortstop. They're always looking for shortstops that can hit. And You know, he's got a good pop in his bat. Down there at the All-Star game Wednesday night, they had a home run hitting contest, and he hit about 3 or 4 out and had a great showing. So he's got an excellent chance to be drafted. If he doesn't get drafted, he'll just go to Tech and play there.
You know, Mike, Ritter had mentioned the 5-year rule, and I believe there's been a change now with that rule. Can you comment on that?
Well, what happened is first time around, the Van Poppel that the Braves tried to draft, he used going to college as a bargaining power. Said he didn't want to sign with the Braves, and he said he was going to go to college, and that kind of turned the Braves off. And then last year, the Yankees drafted a young man named Brian Taylor from Conway, South Carolina, and he went as far as the night before he was supposed to enroll in college. He was at the campus, and he used that as his bargaining power. And the Yankees, they knew they had to sign him that night, or he was going to go to college, and they wouldn't have any more rights to him. Now they've got it set up where even if the young man goes to college, they still have the rights to draft him. So that kind of takes a little pressure off the professional clubs.
Jeff,
speaking about this Van Poppel rule, I think they've got that wrapped up in litigation now. I think the Players Union has filed a grievance on that, and it's it's doubtful at best that it's probably going to hold up.
Right.
That's causing these teams going into the draft next week to worry, like, if we draft this guy knowing he's going to college, are we going to be able to keep him if they dump this rule? So that's something interesting coming up next week. These teams have got to make decisions. Do we go ahead and sign this guy? Or
well, one thing I'll tell you what he said in the papers and his agent said, I mean, he really turned the Braves off from drafting him. They were going to draft him, and they did not draft him because of that.
Jeff, from a high school standpoint, you're a student. You obviously had a good year getting a scholarship going to Clemson. I mean, if you talk with any pro scouts, I mean, what's the process like?
Yeah, I've talked to 3 or 4 scouts, and they can't really tell you if you're going to get drafted or not. But
I mean, not without talking money or anything like. I mean, just was it pretty neat? Or I mean,
it's a great experience. I mean, whether you get drafted in the 1st round or the 5th round, it's an honor. So.
Well, I talked to you a little bit earlier, and you said you had actually a workout for one of the Cincinnati
Reds?
Yeah. What's a workout like?
They had, I think the limit's 6 players or something like that, and they take you out there and see how you do with your arm, and if you're a hitter, they let you take a few cuts.
Wait, they limit. They can only work out 6 players. Or?
I'm not real sure. It's something like that. Yeah.
Huh. Pretty neat.
how did you, being someone who's directly affected by this 5-year rule, how do you feel about it?
It doesn't really matter to me. I've got a good second choice going to Clemson, or first choice, whatever you want to call it. So if I get drafted, it doesn't. I mean, I've got so many options.
I see.
Jeff, speaking of Clemson, there's a couple of pretty good programs in the state here with Georgia and Georgia Tech. Is there any reason you went outside of the state?
I took a visit to Clemson. I really like the campus. It's a beautiful campus.
It is.
And it's got a great program. They've been first or second in the ACC for like 17 consecutive seasons. So they got a winning program. Plus, I kind of want to get away from home a little bit, but it's still close enough to where my dad can come to the game. So
there's a lot of questions when asked, but that film clip we saw, could tell us a little bit about that organization that ran that All-Star game this weekend.
Okay, Jim. The All-Star game was put on by the Atlanta Metro Dugout Club, and our club consists of all members of all over the state. And what we do, we have beginning of the year, we have a coaches clinic and a players clinic where we bring in. This past year, we brought in people from the Mets, the University of Georgia. Steve Weber was there. The Pittsburgh Pirates, they had a catching coach there. So we had a players and coaches clinic. Then
I think we got a phone call. Somebody
All
wants
right.
to ask you something.
Let's go ahead and get that.
Okay.
Hey, you got a question?
Yeah, thank you. We just moved into the region now from St. Louis, and I've got a son who is in the Dunwoody Baseball League, and he's doing very well. He's 8-year-old now, doing really well, showing a lot of potential. I was wondering if you have any recommendations at all for possible training to help him develop towards high school baseball.
Mike, you might want to answer.
Well, I'll tell you what I would tell an 8-year-old young, a kid. First of all, go out there and have a good time, play hard, enjoy yourself. you're going to be as good as you work at it. If he loves the game and he works at it, then he'll end up being a good baseball player. But I think right now, when you're 8 years old, you need to have a good time. You're going to compete, obviously, but I think the important thing when you're that young is to have fun.
Jeff, with this question in mind from this father, how did you prepare for your baseball?
I've played all sports all my life, so my dad was into sports, my mom was, and I have a younger brother, so it was just an everyday thing.
I see.
Jeff, you want to comment on some of your goals when you do go to college?
Well, first thing, you got to get an education. I'm gonna major in marketing, so it should be fun. And someday I want to play in Major League Baseball, so I'm kind of using college as a stepping stone if I don't get drafted.
Mike, tell us about the high school season. When's it start? Does it start during the winter? I mean, since you graduate in June, it's got to fall somewhere in that small period.
Our first game was at the very end of February, and played all March and first half of April, and then the playoffs started.
It's pretty cold in
Yeah,
February.
it was very chilly this year, very chilly, especially playing some night games. And what I would like to see is back up the season a couple of weeks, maybe start in the middle of March, play all March, play all of April, maybe half of May, start the playoffs then. And the weather would be a whole lot better. I think a lot of people play night games now. That draws better crowds. If you play at night, obviously the weather's going to be.
Do you think there'd be a problem with like the kids, in final exams time or?
Well, most teams will be done before the final exams, and when you talk about getting to the end of May or the June, you're only talking about maybe 2 teams left, maybe the people in the state championship games. But I'd just like to see us back it up a little bit and play in better weather.
As a player, if you were, one of those few teams that was left in it, what would you think about playing toward all the way to the end of school? Would you rather be done, say, in the end of May, or would you mind going through with finals and maybe taking home finals or taking it at the games or something?
I'd like it a lot. I would have liked it a lot if they moved it back, because I played 2 sports, so I came right out of basketball into baseball, and I wasn't ready, and it took me 2-3 weeks to get ready, and that's 2-3 weeks in high school. That's half the season.
As players in high school, if you had to pinpoint, what are the key players? Is pitching the key, or if you have a couple of key hitters? I mean, what's going to really make or break a team?
I think pitching is obviously the key in any league in baseball. It doesn't matter what age group. Pitching is the key. But a big position I think is also catcher. That's the leader of the team. He runs the whole show, and he's normally your leader of the ball club. And the pitchers and catchers are obviously important. But the middle of the infield, the center fielder, shortstop, second baseman, and catcher, they play a big role in.
The teams that dominate, sometimes you see these teams, being tops in the state for a few years in a row, or one of the top teams. Or do they usually just, is it overall team, or is it mainly, maybe a few key pitchers or something like that?
Well, I tell you what, in Quad A is normally the overall team, and maybe Double A, Single A, you might get a couple of pitchers here and there. They just throw it by anybody they face, but I think in Quad A it's more of a team aspect.
Okay, I would like to thank both Jeff and Mike for coming tonight. You did a great job, and I'd like to thank Ty and Jim for coming too. Next week is Kurt Bennett, former Atlanta Flame, and check us out next Friday night at 8:30. We'll be here to answer any questions, and have a great weekend.
Good job, guys.